Hey, welcome back to another Silhouette Studio tutorial. Like normal, this is Richard, and this video is going to be a little different than we've done before because I'm making this video as kind of a follow-up to our customizing of tracing video that I did a little while back, because I was not clear enough on a couple of points, and that has led to a little bit of confusion, and a few people have reached out asking for more specifics on the topic. So this will be a little bit of review and a little new information for the newer crafters, that this was unfortunately a little... I assumed people knew a feature without actually explaining it, and that was my mistake. So with that, let's jump in. I've just grabbed this image from Google as a starting point to do this tutorial. Use, of course, whatever image you're interested in, but I like this one and this style of image being black on white because it makes tracing very easy, because it looks for the contrast between the two colors. And like any time that I do tracing, I always bring the scale to the bottom, gets rid of some of the jaggedness in the edges, and then move your threshold up or down, dependent on your design and the desired outcome that you're after. Being black on white, as long as you're somewhere in this middle range, it pretty much looks the same. You can see slight differences as I go up and down. I'm going to go somewhere in the middle and do a trace. And we'll just delete this reference image. All right, so what we did last time, let me make a copy, is I drew in colors to customize this design. So like with the Honda logo, if I wanted this red, in the previous video, I took one of our drawing tools, I drew a shape, make it red, and I moved it to the background so it was behind our design. And that accomplished being red on our otherwise black and white design from Google. The problem is, I didn't specify how and when I use this technique, and people are, I won't say doing it wrong, but they're wasting more time than they need to by following my previous advice. I do not use this all the time. I use this to add detail that isn't there. With this Honda logo, or like the details over here, if you want to make this, silver, like it would be in real life, usually being metal, you don't have to draw out the shape. The design is already there. So what we would normally do is, if you add a color first, it makes it way easier. When we now right-click and choose Release Compound Path. And the reason I added the color first is now everything is selectable. If we don't add the color first and we release the compound path, it's still all selectable, but you have to click right on the line to move it. Versus before, I could just click in the middle. Now there's nothing here to click on. So you have to be a lot more precise, which slows down designing. So I'm going to reselect all of this and add my background color. And now I can click anywhere and I can grab what's in that space. You don't have to get right on the line anymore. So it's much, much faster, which is why I add that outline color first. But like the Honda logo down below, now that we've released the compound path, you can just click on it and change the color. We'd have to do both parts like that if we wanted the look like we did down below. So you can see in this instance, that was much faster than drawing a shape around it. And generally, in a piece like this, where there's lots of defined sections, they're already drawn where I want color. So I can just add the color accordingly. And same on this side, I can select the individual pieces, and I'm just using Shift and clicking to select more than one at a time. That looks pretty good. And where I use the technique I talked about in the other video is when we want to add what isn't designed, or isn't in the design rather. So if we wanted to add like a highlight on the skull, or create another little crack on this side, or through the eye or something maybe. It's when you want to add color in detail, and I was not clear on that. And so for people who were confused, I do apologize. But I will show you, now that we've done this one with the Release Compound Path method, how I would then add to this design using the method from the previous video. Something like that. I'm just going to do this kind of quick. I'm not going for, oops, super accurate. I can click on the red line. There we go. Going for super precise, but just to kind of show what I would do with this technique. Choose ourselves a color. Remove the red outline. We could move that to wherever we think looks nice to give more of a shadow on the design. You could do it with a highlight, just depends on the look you're going for. I chose to go with the shadow color. Since the shadow's on this side, maybe the highlight's on this end, so we could do the same thing. You can, depending on your design, you could do the square or the sharp, like squared edges, but there's a lot of round corners on this one, so I'm using the curved tool, but whatever works for you and your design. I've done both, and both in the same little piece, like this one here. If I can click on it, you can always click a point, right click, and choose to either make it flat or make it curved, whether or not you want those rounded options, the little markers here so you can round them. If you choose make flat, it makes that a straight edge and that option to curve goes away. So you can create with this, and then say you wanted to round this corner, you can do that the same way. Click on it, choose make curve, and now this one is manipulatable. That sounds funny. And the same thing if you want the other side of it, make curve, and now this one, it can be fully curved and customized while leaving the square edges elsewhere. So extra little bonus tip on that one. But manipulate this the same way we did the other, however you want it to look. Mine's not curved anymore, so that one looks really silly. Make a curve. That's good enough for this little tutorial. We'll make this one a highlight. I never like going pure white, so we'll go one less. Get rid of the cut line. Might need a little more white. I want this. Almost white. So we got a little highlight on this side. For this design, it's kind of hard to see. Maybe we'll bump this one up one. A little bit. Just so there's more contrast for that white to pop. Which has unfortunately made this one impossible to see. There we go. We've got a highlight spot. We've got a shadow spot. You could do the same thing down here. You could have highlight across the top. Shadow on the bottom. Just dependent on what you're doing. So this is more what I had intended to explain in the previous video. And I did show a method that worked, but doing this technique for the whole skull, having to draw around this edge, add in this kind of bone yellow color, is a lot of unnecessary work versus click, change the color. So I wanted to make sure that those who were trying to follow my videos weren't wasting unnecessary time by going through and drawing out this whole shape or drawing out each of these little gray pieces. But then if you wanted to add a highlight or add detail, you could do so quickly and easily like we did in the previous video. And you could move this back, move it up. Far back is it? Moving it up layer by layer. Sometimes what I like to do is move the black layer all the way to the back. Looks like these are on top of it too. These to go to the back and then up one layer. There's too many layers. These unnecessary things. I got too many layers on the screen. Just wanted to show the technique. Back. There we go. I want this on top of the gray. Oh, see, and this is one of those times that drawing on top would come in handy. That or I have to cut this short. I could just bring this in so it's inside of the black. Or I could draw it out like we did previously. Either the black lines over the top, so I can bring this piece here behind the black but on top of the gray. So there's times when it comes in handy when you're adding detail. That doing this, you cover the black lines, usually is not desirable. So I could draw back on the black or manipulate as needed. So I would probably, in this case, because I find it a little faster and easier, would be to do this part and then carry it down through here if I wanted it here as well, which realistically you would. Just to kind of create that shape. And I go usually more cartoon style than realism anyway. So if it's not perfectly accurate, I'm usually not bothered. Or if I need it to be more accurate, I just spend more time in the tutorial style videos like this. I'm never making this for any specific reason. So I don't want to spend, oops, I misclicked. That one, that one. There we go. I don't want to spend a lot of unnecessary time when I don't need the end project. So I could be a lot more precise on this if it was needed. But you can see as we step back now, a little highlight detail on there gives it a lot more depth and character than this very flat side. So for big areas like this or the Honda logo, do your, it's not visible right now because I don't have it selected, but you'd have your release compound path. Right now it's not a compound path, so there's the option to make it. But release the compound path, click, whatever it is you want to change, choose your color. If you're adding a detail like this shadow, this highlight, or this highlight, then use your draw tools here, either the sharp corners or the rounded corners. Create your shape, add your color like we did in the previous video. So I think that's enough for this one. I just wanted to clarify how to use the technique that I mentioned a little more effectively and hopefully get away from any confusion that people were having because I wasn't clear enough. So hopefully that clears up any of that confusion. You learned something new. And if you have any questions or I, again, overlooked something that is confusing to those, please let me know in the comments below and I can hopefully clarify for you, or if need be, make a follow-up video on this or any other techniques that you might have questions about. So with that, thank you for all the views, all the subscribes, and all the comments of positive feedback. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, thank you for watching and happy crafting.